Welcome to Faith and Work, the podcast where we talk about what it looks like to live out our faith in the work that you do every single day. Today's conversation is one that I know you've been looking forward to. I'm joined by my friend Brandon Sullivan. His wife Elizabeth joined us 2 weeks ago. He has spent years in education, both as a teacher and now as an administrator. Today we're going to talk about some things that go deeper than the lesson plans, the policies, and the leadership titles. Today we're going to talk about the connection between our work and our theology, because what we believe shapes how we really show up, and how we show up day after day reinforces what we believe. The way that we lead students, support teachers, and make decisions, handle pressure, all reveal what we truly believe about people, purpose, and calling. Whether you work in education, leadership, ministry, or really in any job, this conversation is definitely for you. Let's jump right in. Today, I have Brandon Sullivan here with me recording. I'm so excited to have you here, Brandon. Just introduce yourself and tell everyone on Faith and Work who you are and what you do.
My name is Brandon Sullivan, and I am an educator currently serving in administration
Yes.
at an elementary school here in Knoxville.
Awesome. So you and David got to know each other when you worked at the same school.
Yeah, so David and I actually go even a little bit before that. I met him in college.
That's right. I always forget that
Yeah,
part.
so the first year that I went to college, I went to the same college that David went to. And I had to join some sort of like extracurricular club. It was like a requirement. And
Yeah.
there were none that seemed to be interesting. And then this one seemed to like spike my curiosity more for, this is interesting. It was like a creationist club.
Yeah.
And so David was in there. He was the valiant
Of
defender
course. Of
of
course he
young
was.
earth creationism.
Yeah.
So it was funny, our different perspectives
Yes.
meeting there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you get started in education?
Yeah, so my story goes back to my childhood. Interestingly enough, I hated school. I was
Really?
not a student who just gravitated toward the classroom environment.
Wow.
I found myself more frustrated than engaged. And yet at the same time, I've always loved learning. Like when I'm out for runs, everything that I'm listening to is something like content related,
Yeah.
something that's kind of there. So the way God kind of put me together was always to be a person who's seeking information and knowledge. But the academic sort of school environment was not something for me. So ironically, the Lord ended up putting me into the field of education,
Yeah.
kind of for the purpose of reaching kids who were like me, saying,
Yeah.
what's a way that the experience, like that, what it's like to be a student can be magnified and made beautiful, made exciting for the
Yeah.
kids who feel, kind of disengaged. So that kind of is the journey, and then long difference,
Yeah.
jumping from this to this to this, and the way the Lord kind of brought my educational path and, through grad school to get to where I'm at now.
Wow, that's awesome. I would have never guessed that now, knowing you as an adult. That gives me hope
Yes.
for my sons. So thank you for sharing that. So what does a typical day look like for you being an administrator now at a school? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so it's one of those things. It's funny, being in administration is kind of like feast or famine. Sometimes there are days where just very routine. You're
Yeah.
working on different reports, or making sure all of the grading is put into the system, and just kind of the humdrum tasks. And then other times it's all hands on deck, and you're
Yeah.
dealing with like a behavior issue, or you have to have a conference with a parent, or
Yeah.
have some working on fire drills. So basically, though, the average day comes in. I get there a little bit before 6 o'clock. Get the school opened up and
Before 6?
a little bit before 7.
Oh,
In
good.
the
I
6
was
o'clock
like,
hour. Yeah,
6?
no. I get up at 5,
Okay, yes.
go for a run.
Yes.
Get there a little bit before 6 or 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Get everything turned on, and then from about 7:30 on, welcome kids until about 8, and then go into the office and just see if I can help teachers and do all the things that I have on my to-do list.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were in the classroom for a while.
Yeah.
And then transitioned over
Yep.
to being an administrator. How was that transition for you?
Yeah, that was a really interesting transition because I loved teaching.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of almost like an art form for me. Like I loved creating a classroom environment that had a certain aesthetic, a certain feel. I think the kids who had come through my class, there was just a feeling of what it was like to be in that class.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like a connection between all of my former students. They're like, oh yeah, there were certain rhythms and patterns of life. And so I was so excited to get into administration, but I was also a little bit nervous. I'm like, what is this going to be like? Do I have the skills? All these questions. But it's been really sweet the way that the Lord has kind of just put this timing here. And then many of the skills I learned in the classroom and kind of just applying those. And I've always loved relationships and talking to families and students. And so now I get a chance to work more with teachers, the parents, as well as seeing the whole school, all of those students, as well as not just, 21 special little kids together.
Was that transition difficult to see where you were contributing, like where you were putting value? Because I feel like in the classroom, it's so quick to see where you're making a difference. But on the administration side, it can be a little bit, it can take longer to see where your difference is being made. How was that for you? And how do you look at what you do now? And how has that connection worked for you with making a difference in your current role? Yeah,
that's a great question. So you're exactly right that when you are in the classroom, your impact is, the feedback is instantaneous. Like, you can tell if your students have had a great day that you've done this. But the administration is a little bit more behind the scenes, and yet it's not less impactful. It's just impactful in a different sort of way. And one of the ways that it is that, whereas when you're a child or you work with kids, there's kind of an immediacy with their expressions on their face. Like you can just tell instantly that you've made their day. With adults, we're a little bit more reserved. We're not quite as effusive with our praise. But you can tell that you've made an impact on somebody's day when you don't go out and say, hey, I'm going to take your playground duty today. Go inside and enjoy an extra 30 minutes. Or you just drop by and check in on somebody and tell them they're doing a good job. So they're smaller things, but it's also like, some of the big things behind the projects that are behind the scenes that have an impact that I get to be part of. But at the same time, I have realized that my part is only very small. The administration part is only very small in a very, very large machine. So the teachers are really the ones on the front line doing a lot of the heavy lifting in there. The administration are there to kind of be in the back and make sure that the ship is going in the right direction. So each part is very, very valuable in different ways. Yeah.
You work in a school where maybe not every parent or family kind of shares your same faith background. So how have you kind of navigated sharing the love of Christ with people that maybe you can't talk about it with them, but you can live it out with them? So how are some practical ways that you've been able to do that with some families?
Yeah, so we are a covenant school, which means that we require at least one of the family members, one of the parents, to be a professing believer.
Okay.
But we understand that not everyone who, as Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father's heaven. The perspective I come at it is that there's a reason, even if this person might not be a genuine believer or wherever their relationship with God is, there's a reason that they're here. And so, we don't think that God makes mistakes. And so when I approach this, I think, what is the reason that this family or this person is here? And then simply try to live out loud and help them to see what it looks like, what a beautiful community of educators, administrators, staff, and faculty can look like, and how that can be different from another experience. At the end of the day, we kind of take a little bit of the pressure off ourselves because we're like, it's not our job to save anyone. And so I think that's a good perspective is we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to make sure that we've given all the right answers at all the right times. We just try our very best to live excellently above reproach, love their students, give them the very best education. We want to love them by giving them the very best education that they can possibly get, so that they understand that we value their child because we value the Lord.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about administration, I know you and David have talked a lot about being in the classroom and being on that side, and he has been so hesitant to be on that side of the fence because it's hard. It's a different hard than being a teacher in the classroom. But how have you, on the administration side, how do you feel like you can show the love of Christ, like even through like a discipline situation or a hard situation with a parent or a student, and it gets really hard? How do you feel like Christ's love and forgiveness even can come through in those conversations.
Yeah. One of the things when you're having a hard conversation with an adult, one of our probably first human reactions is defensiveness.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, when anyone feels attacked or you're in a situation, you feel like you need to defend.
Yeah.
So I think some of the practices that have been helpful is to realize, okay, it really just kind of mindfulness and taking a moment to realize this is not a crisis. To speak truth to yourself, to understand that the feelings that I'm feeling right now are going to be past, and then there's kind of a future me that might imagine what it'd be like to come back in time and relive this conversation. And so to try to live in that moment, it's like, what is it that needs to be said here? How, I'm not here to win an argument. I'm here to build a relationship or to repair a bridge, and to communicate something either true or hard or good or bad or mixed for a family. And then to listen as well, because listening is, very seldom the wrong answer.
That's
so
right.
I want to listen to their perspective. And even if at the end of the day, we might have a difference of perspective, or I have to take a line of some place where I'm going to stand my ground on it, to recognize that their experience of this feels the same as my experience, because we both feel like we're right.
Yeah.
And feeling like you're right and being wrong, and feeling like you're right and being right feel the exact same thing.
Right.
So
that's right.
So it gives a little bit of humility of saying, you know what, but we just try our very best. Where it tees in and sort of brings in Christ is, there's a verse where Paul says, to be respectful to all, and I'm trying to, I don't have the exact thing, but respectful to all, and something about gentleness. I wish I had this quote. David would know it in the King James.
Of course he would.
But there's a certain sense of letting our conduct be gentle, and respectful. And so I think most of the time when you come at a conversation, and even difficult conversation, if it's respectful and gentle, it will end up better than if you come at it defensively.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's so many practical ways that we can live out God's forgiveness for us, and how we forgive people that are in our community, in our life, in our work. And it's interesting when we think about just theology as a whole. We think about the practical part of our theology. And growing up, theology was something that was so often debated that I pulled back from it so much. Because it felt like people just studied it to argue and to win. And I wasn't interested in that. And it made me so uncomfortable. And so the older I got and the more I really started diving deeper into Scripture, the more I started to see that theology, when you really study more about the nature of God, and you study more about the actual biblical historical text, it can really help you just to see God more and to understand His nature more. And so for you, I know I love asking you theological questions because you've studied so much. I love it. But what are some practical ways that you feel like your theology impacts what you do for a job?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, preface and maybe confession time. I used to be one of those obnoxious, horrible people when I was in my early 20s that would love just to debate theology, and because of course I'm right and you guys are wrong, and how can you even think? There are those people, and for some people, theology is really a fun topic. It can be just like some people love to, talk about Formula One racing, and they might be arguing over, no, actually the best tires to use are this, and the rain and not the. In the same way, there are some people who are just sort of drawn to that. At the same time, because it's, say you're playing with fire as it is, and you're dealing with God, it can be a situation and a topic that needs to be dealt with a lot more humility than people do. So how does theology kind of tee into your life and kind of impact it or mine? I think something that's been really impactful, or something I've been thinking about lately, is that the way we live really tells us what our theology is, not what we necessarily hold on paper. And so to look at what I state that I believe, and to look at what I live, and to see where those two things are in congruity with one another, and where they are they're not aligned.
Yeah.
So I try to make my theology or make my life match that.
Mm-hmm.
And in all honesty, that they don't perfectly. They really don't. They like the things that I'm like, oh, I believe this, this, and this, and then I see the fact that my life does not perfectly align with those things. It's always a moment of coming back to say, okay, what has really sunk deeply into my heart, and what do I still need to, like KNEED, need into it to really believe. And so for me, it's one of those things to say, I want to keep the most important things that core truths that I really believe about God and reality and humanity. I want those things to be anchor points for me. And then everything else around, the further out I get into the orbit, those things I think are valuable and important and not unimportant, but I want to hold those things more loosely. At the end of the day, kind of like the Hippocratic Oath, I do no harm,
right? And
I point people to Jesus. I think that's the goal.
When your students, you talked earlier about when your students remember you in the classroom. When you think about the impact you're having on students and families and teachers, so now that group that you're impacting is the teachers too, not just the students and families. What do you want people to think about you when you move on to your next opportunity, or you retire and you and Liz are traveling around the world one day? What do you want people to remember about you as a teacher in that environment?
Oh man, I want the kids to have certain memories. I want them to have experienced a really fun, joyful year. You know how I don't know how growing up how you were, but there were certain feelings that each season evoked, like the Christmas season. There was just sort of a vibe, as the youngins would say these days. There was just a vibe of it. That's actually, at the end of the day, I would love for the kids just to have, not necessarily any specific memories. I mean, though they will remember certain songs, certain things that we did in class. All of them will know about Zotz, this like European candy that I probably gave kids. I kept a lot of dentists in Knoxville in business from giving away all this candy. But just the feeling of being of freedom, creativity, curiosity, very high standards, like really having to work hard, but also having a lot of room to make mistakes. So that's, I guess, what I want. And I think that there's not anything particular I would want the teachers other than just to have been encouraged. I think if at the end of the day that they might not even remember, but that they said, you know what? Oh yeah, I felt encouraged. I felt really appreciated. And he made me laugh. Like if that's all that they remember. I think that will be sufficient.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about taking work home with you. I know from David being a teacher that sometimes it's really easy to leave work at work. Sometimes some cases are harder to leave at school. How have you made it a practice to do that? So this week I took a lot of work home with me. This is real talk. It was Wednesday night at 3:49. I woke up and I was stressed out of my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, like there was things that I was having. And so there's not a perfect solution where you can say, okay, if you do the X, Y, and Z, work will just stay neatly in your box. I think a lot of it is more learning to interact with your own brain, your own consciousness in a way that kind of frees you from the natural stresses that tend to creep up. And so for me, what that looks like is prayer and meditation. And sometimes I will play out a scenario to say, okay, so what's the worst thing that could happen here? And will I be okay if that thing happens? And then when it does, then I'm just try to say, hey, Lord, like, here's what I'm nervous about. And I really hope this doesn't happen. Please, it would be so wonderful if it didn't happen. And then, you swipe your email and it's like, am I going to get and it does happen. And it's like, oh, and there's that moment of like fear, anxiety. And then sometimes it doesn't. And then you kind of just feel relieved. But one of the things I do is I try to, in the moments of stress when you're trying to not bring work home for you, but it tends to have clung to the back of your shoes. I try to think of like, all right, think of a past fear that I had. Where is that right now?
Where is that past fear that I one time experienced that's no longer here? It's passed away. And so this fear, thoughts arise in consciousness.
Yeah.
And then they pass away.
Yeah.
And the same will happen with this.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of take a moment to sort of recognize that I'm feeling that way. And even in just the way that I give my attention to that changes the experience of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes then I can just let that. And then having a little 9.5-month-old baby can kind of ground and anchor you to say, you know, this is a lot more important than whatever is going on.
I know for David and I both, having kids definitely, there was a lot of things before having Jackson and Eli that I felt like were still black and white. You know, if you're late to work consistently, it's because you didn't get up on time.
Yeah.
You know? I was pretty rigorous on other people and myself. And I think after having kids, it made me a lot more gracious and a lot more empathetic, especially to parents, but really to everybody, where life isn't always easy as we think it is. And so when you go through something like having a baby and you come home and there's these fresh little eyes that are so curious and they're so excited to discover every sound and everything that they can touch, and it's so beautiful. So how has that changed for you, and what are some lessons that you've learned just as being a new dad? What are some things that have maybe pivoted for you with your worldview or your view of work or view of life?
Yeah. I mean, like to quote the indelible Taylor Swift, everything has changed. Yeah, when you have a child, I mean, I think kind of your moral imagination shifts where you are kind of at the center to now you have this little human life that is at the center. So whereas before when I was a teacher as I was trying to empathetically experience what the child might be experiencing in my class, like what's it like to be a student in my class? I'd be like, all right, so what would it feel like if I were the student receiving this correction, or if I were the student who had gotten in trouble, how would I want to respond? Now it's kind of shifted more to like my daughter. Like, how do I want someone to treat Lucy in the classroom? How do I want her experience to be here? So that's kind of shifted. It's also been very grounding. Having a child is just like, it is so much. A lot of things that are just unnecessary tend to fall away. I think, as you were saying, that you just tend to not care as much about things. It's a lot more like focused, and how many things that you have for your attention just kind of narrows. What did you experience as you guys were in that transition?
So as we were in that transition, I remember when Jackson was a baby, and it made me fall in love with David more and differently, because he had to sacrifice in ways that he had never had to sacrifice for me before. Rotating shifts of sleep. I all of a sudden needed a lot more help than I'd ever needed before. I needed help in the kitchen. I needed help with the house. I needed help with laundry. We took shifts sleeping. I was working full-time and he was working full-time. We were trying to go back and forth. I think it really helped me to see love differently. And we also had to be, all of a sudden, we were both a little bit more sleep deprived. You say things that you probably shouldn't say when you're sleep deprived because you're tired and your patience is thin. And we had to practice a lot more forgiveness with each other. Yeah. I was pretty confident in who I was as a person. And then having a baby, it really took away a little bit of that confidence because I didn't know what I was doing anymore. And all of a sudden you had to start back over at ground zero. Yeah. And so for David to support that and to really encourage me through that. And when I doubted myself, for him to just say, babe, you're doing a great job. No, I think you're doing good. And I think for each other, when he didn't know what he was doing or I didn't know what I was doing, it really strengthened our relationship. It was hard, but it really strengthened our relationship in a new way. We've been married for 5 years before we had him, and it really strengthened us in a really unique way. It was hard, but it really helped us in that way.
Yeah, and I think each change, each really large life change begins to speak to you about who you are and threatens your identity. To say, who am I if I am not a competent, whatever you want to fill in the blank with that. And then those types of things sort of compound the anxiety and just the stress of, this is just hard being sleep deprived. But it's like, what does this what is reality saying about me if
Yes.
this, and this? And then also you end up like, oh, we have an entirely different marriage. Like that's a new, like you think, oh, you're married for one person for all your life, but you have different marriages throughout that.
Yes.
And so once the baby's like, well, we have a new marriage now. And so learning to navigate that and as forgiveness. And then I think for me personally, I think this is just the way I'm wired, is just humor is kind of a natural way in which I just kind of cope with reality, just to find the humorous side of things. And those are those moments where you kind of lean in and be like, man, life is funny and strange and wonderful and hard and beautiful and horrible all at the same time.
Yeah. When Eli was born it was a test that we were not quite ready for, and it was harder. COVID happened when he was 6 months old. And so we were both trying to work, and then we had a 3.5-year-old and a 6-month-old, and everything just got really, really stressful. And it tested us in a way that was really, really hard on our marriage. But you're absolutely right. We had a different marriage experience with Jackson than with Eli.
So we come from slightly different faith tradition backgrounds, but I think something that probably permeated through both of them was a bit of a fear-based reality. Maybe even something that kind of influenced the ways our parents parented us.
For sure.
Saying, we really want to make sure that our children's, souls are in the right place when they die. It's the climate and this other place is horrible for them. We just want to make sure they get to the right spot in there. And therefore, we kind of internalize a lot of things that can be really damaging for the idea of your identity, who you are, the security that you feel with God. You might feel like there's a grace bank where you say, okay, so we've got a set limit of withdrawals I can make, and if I withdraw too much, then like my standing with the bank, my check could bounce, and then therefore, and you do not want your check to bounce in this in the divine realm. And so it really becomes, it really can become something that causes a spirituality that's grown up around more negative feelings and avoiding negative consequences than it can around a relationship and a desire to actually have a relationship with somebody who's like really awesome. Like, there's probably everyone, I'd be curious to hear who this person is for you, but there's probably like a friend or a few people in your life that you're just like, when you think about them, you just like light up. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I like love hanging out with them. They're just so awesome. Like you don't have to ask me twice. I know regardless of what we'll do, it's just going to be amazing. And I'd say for the majority of people, even people in the church, that is just not the emotional experience that you have when you say the word God.
Wow.
And I think that's just the honest reality of that. Is that when you're like, when somebody's like thinking of God, it's and it's like, oh yeah, and there are certain adjectives we throw around to try to be pious and this and that, but that's where the idea of delighting in God. You can't delight in something you don't think is actually delightful. And it's like trying to make yourself love asparagus when really chocolate is what you want.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that perspective. I didn't know that's where you were going. And so when you said that, I was like, oh man, that's really good. I'm definitely going to have to use that again. The last question I had for you was, if we've got people that are in the field of education now and they're listening and they're maybe feeling discouraged because they don't see the difference they're making, or they're not sure how they're living out their purpose, they're not sure how to live out their faith in the classroom, and it feels like they've got a really hard class. And I know you and David have been there where you've had some hard groups. What encouragement would you give to those teachers?
Oh man. So the encouragement I'd probably have to just give to my past self in the same situation. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of something that would be, if I'd had the wisdom to give something equal. If you're an educator out there and you are having one of those years, or it's just difficult, just give yourself a lot of grace to realize it is it's such a noble calling. Like you are a rock star. Like, you're not doing it for the money. you're not doing it for all the amazing, wonderful parent emails that you get, affirmations every day, but like you're changing the conscious experience of people who are going to make a really big difference in the world. When they come into your classroom, they're going to have an experience. You have the ability to make someone's life, the value of somebody's life is infinitely, like, the value, but the quality of your life is the quality of your conscious states, the quality of your experience.
Yeah.
And so you have a job as an educator to help the quality of somebody's day-to-day be, for a year, be different. And that impact can really mean the difference in the trajectory of somebody's life. You are not going to be that teacher for every one of your students.
Right.
But you will be it for some of their students. You might be it only for one of your students. And you might have been, as Esther was called to the kingdom for such a time as this, your purpose might be just to reach one student. It could probably be much more. God will use your life there. But I'd say that you have a really meaningful career. If you're feeling burnout, talk to someone. Like, don't let that burnout kind of like eat you up, and realize there are seasons that you're going to go through. There are going to be times where it's mundane and drudgery. There are going to be times where you're super excited about it. And teach with other people that you love. Like, teach with people that give you life. And so find a place and work environment where you really enjoy your coworkers. You really have supportive administrators. And because this is your life, like you're spending a finite amount of time. You're spending the limited supply of your days. And you want the experience of your life when you look back on it. You want that experience to say, I was happy that I spent my time doing that. So those are the things I had to say. And always bring the Lord into your classroom. Like, pray over your students, pray over yourself, and invite Him in and see what He'll do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brandon, thank you so much for sharing your experience. The conversation has been so good. I know God's going to use it.
Awesome.
So thank you so much.
This has been such a meaningful conversation. I'm so thankful for Brandon sharing his story and experience and how his theology has impacted his work. Scripture tells us in Colossians 3:23, "And whatsoever you do, do it heartily as unto the Lord and not to men." And I think that verse leads especially strong in everyday moments that we talked about today. The meetings, the classroom, the decisions, the pressure. If this episode encouraged you or gave you a new perspective, I would love for you to take a moment and leave us a review on whatever your favorite podcast app is. Reviews help more people find these conversations. And I'd love for you to share this conversation with a friend, a teacher, or an administrator who could really use some encouragement right now. Thank you for spending your time with us. My hope is that you walk away reminded that your faith doesn't stay separate from your work. It informs it, it strengthens it, and it gives it purpose. Join me next time as we continue these real conversations about living out our faith in everyday work. Until then, keep showing up with intention, with integrity,